right. Hello, everyone, and what an amazing feeling. When I started my crypto journey 9 years ago, I never thought that I would end up on the main stage in Cannes. This is just such an unbelievable outcome. So thank you, everybody, for coming here. And I'm here to talk about the real state of L2s on Ethereum. I'm Bartek. I'm a founder of L2BEAT. Maybe let me just start by asking a simple question to the audience. Can you raise your hand if you've never heard about L2BEAT? Okay, there's 1, 2, 3 people. So it's amazing. Thank you all so much for knowing us. For those that don't know us, L2BEAT is essentially a watchdog, a community watchdog. I tend to think about this as a community for watching every single L2 which is out there, and essentially what we're doing is something which is akin to traditional finance, where let's say that you want to open a new bank. What do? You go to a regulator, you ask for a license, and you would probably have to go through a kind of an audit. You have to meet a lot of different regulations. You have to pay a lot of fees for that. And not only if you wanted to be a bank, if you wanted to be, I don't know, like a pension fund or some kind of someone who has some financial instruments, you go to a rating agency like Moody, right? And again, you pay for the rating. Now, this kind of a model is super common in traditional finance, but I think personally that it's actually quite impossible to pull off if everybody can launch an L2, a new chain, right? Anybody, right? Each one of you can set up a new company, raise funds and launch a chain and try to attract users. And then what do? So we ended up at L2BEAT essentially building an infrastructure so that we can monitor each one of these L2s. And by each one, I mean hundreds and maybe even thousands of them, right? So what you see essentially as a kind of a website with ratings for all the L2s, the security ratings, what's behind the scene is a 20-odd team that actually monitors the chain, and each day it receives a couple of notifications, and each day it reassesses if any of the changes that were introduced to these L2s kind of break or change the security assumptions. That's a huge infrastructure that we're running, and you can actually test it out using our free open source tools if you want, but the whole model is kind of flipped upside down from the traditional model, right? Because it's permissionless. Anyone can launch a chain. So I'm going to walk you through what we've done quite recently, which was a major reclassification of L2s. But to fully understand why it happened, I need to take you on a bit of a journey, a bit of a history of L2s. So let's do it very quickly. So the story began about 7 years ago when a chap called Barry Whitehead, he published a repo with what we today consider a first rollup. And he actually introduced that name. You can today study this repo, and it's a fully fledged functional rollup. This rollup, I would definitely recommend you to look at in details, but what is important about this rollup, and I would stress it once again, it was like literally the first one that was ever published. Before that name, the rollup name wasn't even popular. It talks about data availability guarantees, right? It says that it's important that we pass every updated leaf to a smart contract so the data will always be available. Thus, the system has the same data availability guarantees as Ethereum. So, in my opinion, data availability is one of the most confusing terms to a lot of users. And I will start, explaining why we did recategorization by explaining to you how we actually understand the data availability. So, imagine in traditional finance that to withdraw your funds from the bank asks you to submit the history of your transactions. That is strange, right? We're not used to that. When we want to withdraw our money from the bank, it's bank's responsibility to understand how come, we have what we have? And it's the bank's responsibility to prove, in effect, that, they're not cheating, right? Like, we don't need to worry about that. But here, the situation is very, very different. We don't want to trust intermediary. We actually want to disintermediate. We want to change the setup so that we don't have to trust anyone. So suddenly now it's kind of like our responsibility, Like, we need to submit data to prove what we have. And what if the data wasn't even published in the first place? What if the bank just said, hey, you know what, your current balance is, I don't know, $10,000. And you're like, what? No, it should be 95, right, $1,000. But the bank said, no, I'm sorry, it's like 20. What do you do? And this is just something that, we don't think about it. And this is not, by the way, our typical experience on blockchains today, only because these intermediaries are trusted. They kind of don't cheat on us, right? But our goal is to build trustless systems. So you need to remember that data availability, it's not just about, that the data can be accessed in some time in the future. You will need that data to withdraw your funds. The problem is that data has to be published in the first place. It is quite possible that a roll-up operator would claim your balance or someone else's balance and never publishes data. And then if that happens, then you're essentially screwed, right? You really can't withdraw your funds, and that's it. In fact, on optimistic roll-ups, such a malicious operator can steal your funds by simply not publishing data. So to kind of stress this point, it's super important. Data availability is about data publishing, and you need, a trusted group of parties that would attest the data was published. And when you publish data to Ethereum, it will be your Ethereum validators. So that would be the ideal solution. And then later, you need to retrieve data, right? And most teams seem to focus on later. They kind of forget about, the left part of this diagram. So very quickly, the community realized that publishing data on Ethereum is kind of expensive, and we need to find cheaper ways to publish data. And I think it was Starkware that has proposed this concept that we today call Data Availability Committee, the DAC. It's like a group of attesters, if you like, right? It's like, essentially, it's a multisig that would attest that the data was published by the operator. And if it was published, then the chance that you will be able to retrieve the data later on for your withdrawals, of course, the guarantees are much higher. And notice, the original proposals. I wanted to stress one thing. The Data Availability Committee should be made up of reputable entities, trusted by the community and the market, and they are compensated for these services. So it was understood at the time that it is a very important job, and this committee should be, it's essentially a trust function, and users should have certain guarantees. So the founding members of the first StarkX Data Availability Committee were Consensus, Infura, Nethermind, few other companies, like a network of known companies. This is how this concept started. And notice, by the way, the year, right? We're talking 2020, so 5 years ago. And then 2 years later, Arbitrum announced a construction for optimistic rollups, which is essentially kind of an equivalent, if you like. They called these types of chains antitrust chains. You will see a lot of L2s following this model on the right, especially the Orbit chains. And they follow it because it's much cheaper than publishing data on Ethereum. And again, in the proposal of Arbitrum, you can read actually here. As an example, there might be 20 committee members, and an assumption is that at least 2 of them are honest. This is a very weak assumption, right? So imagine, 20 reputable companies attesting that the data was published. You would need to corrupt most of them so that the operator can actually steal your money. So I think as a community, we kind of agreed that, as long as the Data Availability Committee is made up of reputable entities, as long as this number is relatively big, these constructions can be good enough for certain use cases. For other use cases, it's much better to publish data on Ethereum to get the full security of Ethereum. And there was a lovely discussion on Twitter how these constructions should be called. Vitalik was like insisting that it should be called plasma, but at the end of the day, these constructions today are called validiums. Validiums is a term that was suggested at that time by the founder of Starkware, Elie Ben-Sasson. So we've got validiums. Starkware was like ZK company behind ZK rollup. So today we're using the word validiums for ZK constructions and optimiums for optimistic constructions. And these constructions don't publish data to Ethereum. And then quickly later, Celestia was launched. Notice after 4 years of research, a very complicated infrastructure, Avail was launched as a data availability service, and EigenLayer as one of the main services that they launched EigenDA. What about proof systems? Again, if we go 7 years back, everything was proven. The malicious prover who does not have the keys, the private keys to the leaves, they cannot change a leaf. Only the person who controls the private key can. So in these original constructions, it was impossible for the malicious operator to steal the funds because they had to produce a ZK proof. And sooner, very soon, the first system from Starkware was launched over the mainnet. It was Diversify. Then Optimism has launched their first version. And again, in the first version, they talk about fraud-proof system. This is the core purpose of a fraud-proof system, is to defend users' funds. ZK-EVM was launched by ZK-Sync soon after. So that was more or less the setup when the rollup-centric roadmap has been announced. This is how it all started, and this is when Vitalik said, hey, things are looking really great. It looks like rollups are the future, and that will be our future as Ethereum. Now let's fast forward and see where we really are today and why. A lot of projects have realized that, well, if DAGs are cheaper than rollups, then maybe having just one member on the data availability committee will be even cheaper. Why not? Let's do that. Some of them went even further. They completely confused data publishing from data availability, and they realized, you know what, maybe publishing data to AWS is super safe. Everybody knows AWS, right? If we publish data to AWS, then everybody would be able to download the data from AWS. But they kind of forgot to mention what would happen if they never published this data. So, and other projects started to post data to Celestia or Avail or EigenDA, but they kind of failed to notify Ethereum that the data was actually posted there. They didn't use what we call an DA oracle or a DA bridge. So in fact, Ethereum doesn't know that the data is posted to Celestia. What about proof systems? Turns out that proof systems are kind of easy for simple use cases, but if you wanted to prove the full EVM execution, problems arise. So there are a lot of problems that were discussed for fraud proofs. There are a lot of potential problems and complexity discussed for ZK proofs, like certain vulnerabilities that were found in the proof system that could affect every single ZK chain that's using them. In a way, when people today think about these proof systems, they see this complicated math and all sorts of potential crypto economic problems. And a lot of projects came with this ingenious idea, and I'm being sarcastic right now, of course, that having no proof system at all is cheaper than having a proof system. And also it is potentially even more secure because these proof systems are complicated. And by the way, if you can instantly upgrade rollups, then maybe the security of your system is the same as having no proof system, right? And suddenly we got an avalanche of systems with very, very simple data availability guarantees, like very, very weak. Some projects like literally posting to one server and have data availability committee consisting of just one entity. So I'm not really even sure why they call it committee. And they don't have a proof system. So to sum up, in most L2s, permissionless operators can simply steal your funds. And now notice, like, this is not how we started, right? When we started, you know, most effort was actually was put into trying to make sure that the users' funds are secure, proof systems are sound, and data is actually published. And it costed money. Today, seems like it's more about user acquisition, TVL, and whatnot, and this is all at the expense of security. So I think we got to a stage where we kind of decided as a community that we need to change that. And as L2BEAT, you know, as a watchdog that is run by the community and for the community, we did a survey. We asked you guys, like, what do we need to do? Because, you know, it seems like the whole roll-up evolution is going to a very strange place where no one seems to care about security anymore. You told us to be more stringent. You told us to actually push these projects further, to actually make sure that they are made up to the standards that we expected them to be built 5-6 years ago. And we announced that change back in Bangkok in autumn, and we gave projects 6 months to adjust, half a year to adjust. And I'm here happy to say that, you know, this reclassification, recategorization has been introduced by L2BEAT, and projects that do not meet these basic security and decentralization criteria, like they don't have a proof system or they don't post data to anything that resembles data availability committee, not to mention posting to Ethereum, we have put them from rollups category or Validium's category to the others category. And we did that change 2 weeks ago, more or less, and look what happened. We ended up, originally we had like 120 rollups or so, we ended up with only 24. So these are the systems that truly post data to Ethereum, and they have what we would call a solid proof system. With Validium category, it's even worse. Today, we only have 3 such systems, meaning that everybody else, every single system that used to be called Validium, turns out that these systems are actually posting data to a very small data availability committee, or they're using Celestia or Avail or EigenDA with no infrastructure to inform Ethereum that that's the case, making data withholding attacks very, very easy and very cheap if operator is malicious. Everybody else was kind of relegated, if you like, relegated to a category called the others, with our hope that they will soon enhance their security infrastructure, and soon we will be happy to announce that they are back into the rollup and Validium category, meaning that they actually take security and decentralization seriously. And many projects approached us, and they are working heavily on that. We have Hubi from L2BEAT here on stage. He'll be giving out awards, like Khan awards to every single project that actually survived recategorization. And to survive recategorization, all you need to do, and granted, you know, it's difficult, you need to do 2 things. You need to post data to data availability committee that consists, must have at least 5 independent public attesters. Or of course, you can post data to Ethereum if you want. Or if you're using all DA solutions like Celestia, you need to use a bridge like Blobstream. Blobstream Celestia has built such a bridge. Very, very few people and projects are actually using this bridge. You need to be able to inform Ethereum that the data was actually published to Celestia, or Avail, or EigenDA, or any other, frankly, all DA solution. And also, it's not enough to declare that you have a proof system. You need to have a running proof system. You need to have a proof system that actually works, that is sound, that can prove every single transaction. And if you're using optimistic rollups, you need to allow, ideally, anyone to challenge the state. Or if you have a whitelist, this whitelist needs again to have 5 independent entities that can validate state roots. You cannot restrict validators to just one unknown entity because it's kind of useless. You can be your friend that can easily collude with you. That's not what we want. So this is recategorization. Talk to us if you're hesitant. This is all done, as I said before, by the community and for the community. And because we're a public good company that is funded by directly or indirectly by all of you, I want to extend my biggest thanks to all of you. I mean, if not the community, we wouldn't exist. I think we are serving a very important function here, and with hopes of the usage of Ethereum in the real world by the real financial institutions, this function will be even more important, in my opinion. Thank you very much.